provide commentary on my own stories. But for this story, I think it's kind of important. The story is based on a true incident. My mother is a 5th grade teacher, and she came home from school one day and told the genesis of this story. And then I took that and greatly embellished. And as I was developing the story, I was getting ready to attend the National Christian Storytelling Conference. And so I thought this would be a good time to try it out. And they had professional storytellers there to do coaching sessions. And they were small group sessions. And so I was invited to tell a story and get some critique. So I told my story to that group in the workshop, and the professional storyteller, she just laughed, and she said, "It's a wonderful story. Of course, there's nothing Christian about it, but it's a delightful story." And I thought, oh wow, she missed the point. Christian storytelling can be anything from just telling family-friendly stories like Aesop's Fables or Mother Goose, or it could be on the other extreme where you're telling a story right out of the Bible. Or you could do what I do and tell stories that have a Christian theme or provide some kind of insight into the church or into Christianity, faith itself. And so it's a wide genre, and I hope this story fits. This story is designed to provide some commentary on how some churches may treat people who in some way differ from themselves, and how we all need to grow. And if that doesn't come through the story, well, I hope you enjoy the story anyway. And I hope it makes you smile. The 5th grade boys jumped to the back seat of the school bus the minute the high school and middle school students had been dropped off at their school. And the back seats of the bus were a place you kind of graduated to. The 5th grade boys, being the oldest grade school students, they figured that was their place. And so for the last mile and a half of the school bus ride, they were going to take that place of honor. As he scooted into his seat, one of the boys noticed that there was a magazine on the floor. Clearly it had been dropped by one of the older kids. And he picked it up and looked at it, and yes, it was one of those magazines. He opened up the magazine, let out a bit of a gasp, tapped his friend on the shoulder, and showed him. It naturally opened to the center, and there, unfolded, 4 folds tall, a beautiful young woman. And she was wearing nothing but a smile. It was a smile that seemed to say, "I just want to be loved." But the boy quickly folded it back up and put it under his jacket because he knew something like this could get him into a lot of trouble. When the boy took off his coat, he hid the magazine in his desk. All morning long, he would flip open his desk and show his buddies this forbidden treasure, this bit of contraband. At morning recess, the boys took the magazine out to the playground and they started to tease the girls. Then the inevitable happened. One of the girls shouted, "I'm telling Mrs. Smith," and that sent the fear of God into the boys. Now after recess, the boy who found the magazine, before anything else could happen, ran up to Mrs. Smith's desk. And he said to her, "Mrs. Smith, I found this on the school bus." And he handed her the magazine. And as the boy handed her the magazine, Mrs. Smith was a little bit distracted, getting ready to teach. So she didn't really fully understand what she had. And she distractedly picked it up, and it naturally opened at the middle. And there unfolded this beautiful young woman, 4 folds tall, wearing nothing but a smile. A smile that seemed to say, "I just want to be loved." And as the dawning came to her of what she was holding, she also noticed 25 sets of 5th grade eyes just glued to her. She folded up that picture, said to her students, "Everybody take your seats and stay there." Then she stormed out the door, headed off to the principal's office. When Mrs. Smith got to the principal's office, he wasn't there. So she tossed the magazine into the trash can, like the trash that it was. And she went back to her classroom and just began teaching as if nothing had happened. Sometime later, the principal came back to his office, and after a few minutes, he discovered the magazine in his garbage can. And oh, his face turned so beet red. And he started going down the hallway, trying to figure out who had put it there. Finally, he came to Mrs. Smith's room. "Mrs. Smith," he said, "did you put this in my office?" And as he said this, he gave the magazine a shake. And there she came, all 4 folds tall. And Mrs. Smith said, "Yes, I put that in your trash can like the trash that it is." And he said, "Do you know what kind of trouble I can get into if somebody found this in my office?" And then he noticed all the students just staring at him. And he looked and he saw what was in his hand. And he immediately just folded it all up and walked out the door on over to the custodian's office. Now, the janitor's office was actually the furnace room, and the janitor just kind of hung out there most of the time, drinking his coffee and reading the newspaper. He was always ready to respond to the next spill or vomit. Most of his work was done after school hours, so he was just there in case they needed him. So when the principal raged into the janitor's space, the janitor gave a little bit of a start. And he said, "How can I help you, sir?" And the principal pulled out the magazine and showed it to him and said, "I want you to burn this." And as he said this, he gave the magazine a shake, and there she came, all 4 folds tall, wearing that smile. And the janitor looked at him and said, "Are you sure?" Then the principal, not trusting that the janitor would comply with his wishes, he went over to the furnace and he opened the door. It was an old converted coal furnace. It had been converted to gas years ago, and it really wasn't made for such things. But he took that magazine and he tossed it there into the flames, into the gas jets. And as he tossed the magazine, it opened one last time to the picture of the beautiful young woman wearing nothing but a smile. That smile that seemed to say, "I just want to be loved." And so as the edges of the paper began to blacken and curl, up in Mrs. Smith's 5th grade class, all of her students had their faces buried in their books. Thank you for listening to my story. And if you like my stories, please subscribe. God bless.